The teacher's judgment. I am an old man now. My hair is gray and my face has many lines, but I remember my teenage years very well. I often think about those days. I was a teacher for many years. I loved my job. I enjoyed helping students learn. Every day I stood in front of my class and taught with passion. I wanted my students to succeed. I wanted them to have a bright future. One of my best students was a boy named Yasim. He was different from others. He was smart and always paid attention. He asked good questions. He finished his homework on time. He got the best grades. I believed he would do something great in life. But one day, everything changed. Yasim stopped doing his homework. He did not answer questions. He did not even look at me in class. He looked tired all the time. His eyes were heavy. His hands were slow. His grades started to fall. He, who was once the best, became one of the weakest. I did not understand why. I thought maybe he had become lazy. Maybe he did not care about school anymore. I was disappointed. I called him after class. I asked him why he was not working hard. He did not answer. He just stood there looking at the floor. His face had no expression. I told him that he needed to focus. I told him he was wasting his talent. He just nodded and left the room. I watched him go, feeling upset. How could such a bright student change so much? I did not know the answer. Days passed and nothing changed. Yasim was still quiet. He still did not do his work. I saw him looking out the window many times. His hands rested on his desk, but his mind was somewhere else. He was not the same student. He was like a shadow of the boy I once knew. The change was too big. I wondered what had happened to him, but I did not ask again. I just watched. One evening I was walking home. The sun was setting and the streets were quiet. I passed by a small shop. The lights inside were dim. Boxes were stacked outside the door. Then I saw a boy working there. He was carrying heavy boxes from one side to the other. His steps were slow. His back was bent. He looked tired. His clothes were dusty. I walked closer, my heart beating fast. Then I saw his face. It was Yasim. I stopped. I could not believe my eyes. I stood there watching him. My best student was working at a shop. He was not reading books. He was not writing notes. He was carrying heavy boxes. His face was tired. His hands were rough. His clothes were old. This was not the Yasim I knew. I felt confused. Why was he working here? Why was he not at home, studying? Many questions filled my mind, but I had no answers. I wanted to talk to him. I wanted to ask why he was here, but I did not. I just stood and watched. He did not see me. He was too busy. He moved from one side to another, lifting, carrying, and arranging things. His body looked weak, but he kept working. I saw him wipe sweat from his face. I saw his tired eyes. My heart felt heavy. This was not laziness. This was something else. I turned and walked away. My mind was full of thoughts. I felt guilty. I had judged him too fast. I thought he had lost interest in school. I thought he was wasting his time. But now I saw something different. He was not wasting time. He was working hard. He was fighting for something, but I did not know what. That night, I could not sleep. I kept thinking about Jassim. I remembered the way he looked in class. I remembered the way he looked at the shop. The two images were so different. He was not the same boy. Something had happened, something big. I wanted to understand. I wanted to know the truth. The next day, I watched him again in class. He was quiet. He looked tired. His books were closed. His pen did not move. But I saw something new. I saw pain in his eyes. I saw worry on his face. He was not lazy. He was struggling. But with what? I had to find out. I could not ignore it anymore. I had to talk to Jassim. I had to understand what was happening. After class, I called him again. He stood in front of me just like before. His shoulders were low. His face was tired. His hands were in his pockets. He did not look at me. I asked him again, "Jassim, what is wrong?" But he did not answer. He stayed silent just like before. But this time I did not stop. I said, "I saw you at the shop." His head lifted slightly. His eyes met mine for a second, then looked away. I knew he heard me. I knew he understood. There was a long silence. Then he took a deep breath. "I have to work," he said in a low voice. His words were simple, but they felt heavy. I waited for him to say more, but he didn't. I did not know what to say. I had many questions, but I did not want to push him, so I just nodded. "Thank you for telling me," I said. He nodded back and walked away. My heart felt even heavier than before. I wanted to help, but I did not know how. That evening, I could not stop thinking about Jassim. His words repeated in my head. I have to work. But why? What had changed in his life? I decided to find out. The next day after school, I went back to the shop. I stood outside and watched. Jassim was there again, carrying boxes, moving quickly, working hard. Then I saw the shop owner, an old man with gray hair. I walked up to him and said, "Excuse me, sir. Can I ask about the boy who works here?" The man looked at me and smiled. "You mean Jassim?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "He is my student." The man's smile faded. He sighed and said, "That boy has been through a lot." I felt my heart beat faster. "What do you mean?" I asked. The man looked at Jassim, then back at me. "His father is gone," he said. "He left." I stared at him. "Left," I repeated. The man nodded. "Yes, one day he just disappeared. No one knows where he went." I felt a sharp pain in my chest. I thought Jassim's father had died, but he had not. He had left. He had chosen to leave. I suddenly understood why Jassim had changed, why he was working, why he was so tired. I stood there in silence. I remembered Jassim's bright eyes, his sharp mind, his strong spirit. Now I saw his tired face, his slow hands, his quiet voice. He had lost something big. He had lost a father, not to death, but to choice. And that kind of loss was even harder to understand. I wanted to help him, but I did not know if I could. That night I sat in my chair thinking about Jasim. I thought about the way I had judged him. I thought about the way I had been wrong. I had seen his silence as laziness. I had seen his tiredness as carelessness. But now I saw the truth. He was not weak. He was not lazy. He was carrying a weight too heavy for a boy his age, and he was carrying it alone. The next day I looked at Yasim in class. I did not ask him any questions. I did not tell him to study harder. I just looked at him and gave him a small nod. He saw me, and for the first time in weeks, he gave me a small nod back. It was not much, but it was something. After that day, I looked at Jasim differently. I no longer saw a lazy student. I saw a boy who was fighting a silent battle, a boy who was trying to be strong, a boy who was carrying more than he should. But I still did not know how to help him. I could not bring his father back. I could not take away his pain. All I could do was be there. So I watched him closely. I gave him time. I waited. Days passed and Yasim stayed the same. He came to class, but he did not speak much. He sat at his desk, but he did not write. He listened, but his mind was far away. Sometimes I saw him rubbing his eyes, trying to stay awake. Sometimes I saw his hands shaking when he picked up his pen. The work was too much for him. He was too young for this life, but he had no choice. And that broke my heart. One day after school, I walked up to him. He was packing his books slowly. I stood beside him and said, "You are strong, Yasim." He looked up at me, surprised. I could see the question in his eyes. No one had told him that before. No one had seen his strength. "I know life is hard for you," I said, "but you are not alone." He looked down again, and for a moment I thought he would not respond. But then he whispered, "Thank you." It was just 2 words, but they meant everything. That evening I made a decision. I could not change Yasim's past. I could not bring his father back. But I could make his present a little easier. The next day, I went to the shop where he worked. I spoke to the owner again. "Yasim is a good worker," I said, "but he is also a student. He needs time to study." The old man nodded. "I know," he said. "He works too hard." Then he thought for a moment and said, "Maybe I can change his hours. Maybe he can work less." I smiled. That would help him a lot. The man nodded again. "I will talk to him," he said. The next morning, Yasim came to class. He still looked tired, but there was something different in his eyes. He picked up his pen, he opened his book, and for the first time in weeks he wrote something. It was not much, just a few words, but it was a start. I felt a small sense of hope. Maybe, just maybe, things would get better. But life is never that simple. That afternoon, as I was leaving school, I saw Yasim sitting alone on the steps. His head was down. His hands were covering his face. Something was wrong. My heart sank. I walked up to him and sat beside him. I did not speak. I just waited. After a long silence, he looked up at me. His eyes were red. He took a deep breath and said, It's my mother. His voice was shaking. I felt a cold fear in my chest. What happened? I asked gently. He closed his eyes for a moment, then whispered, "She lost her job." I did not know what to say. I had hoped things would get better, but now they were getting worse. Yasim had already lost his father. Now his mother had lost her job. That meant less money. That meant more struggle. That meant more pain. I wanted to tell him that everything would be okay, but I knew that was a lie. So I just put my hand on his shoulder. He did not move. He just sat there, staring at the ground. That night, I could not sleep again. I thought about Yasim and his mother. I thought about their life, their problems, their pain. I wanted to help, but how? I was just a teacher. I had no power. I had no money to give. All I had were my words, and I hoped they would be enough. The next day I watched Yasim closely. He looked even more tired than before. His eyes were dull, his shoulders were lower, his hands were slower. He was trying to stay strong, but I could see the weight on him. His mother had lost her job. That meant more work for him. That meant more nights without sleep. That meant less food on the table. I could not imagine how hard it was for him. After class, I sat beside him again. "Yasim," I said softly, "you do not have to do this alone." He looked at me, confused. "Everyone needs help," I continued, "even the strongest people." He stayed silent for a moment, then sighed. "I don't know what to do," he admitted. His voice was small. He was just a boy. But life had forced him to act like a man. I thought for a moment, then I said, "There are people who can help." He frowned. "Like who?" he asked. "Like the school," I said. "Like the community." He shook his head. "I don't want charity," he whispered. His pride was strong, but I saw the fear in his eyes. "It is not charity," I said. "It is support, and everyone needs support." He did not answer, but I could see that he was thinking. That was enough for now. Later that day, I spoke to the school principal. I told him about Jasim. I told him about his mother. The principal listened carefully, then he nodded. "We can help," he said. "There are programs for students like him." My heart felt lighter. Maybe finally Yasim would get the help he needed. The next morning, I told Yasim about the school's support. He hesitated. He was not used to asking for help, but then he nodded slowly. "Okay," he said. It was just one word, but it was the beginning of something new. Maybe, just maybe, things would change. Yasim agreed to accept help, but I knew it would not be easy. He was used to carrying everything alone, never asking for anything. But now, he had support. The school arranged for financial assistance. His mother was offered a small job in the cafeteria. It was not much, but it was something. It was a new start, and that mattered. In class, Yasim slowly changed. He still worked at the shop, but his hours were shorter. He had more time to sleep, which helped him focus. He had more time to study, and little by little his grades improved. He had more time to be a student again. His eyes were still tired, but they were not empty anymore. I saw small moments of hope, moments where he smiled at his classmates, moments where he answered a question with confidence, moments where, just for a second, he looked like himself again. One afternoon, as I was leaving school, Yasim walked up to me. He stood in front of me, silent for a moment. Then he said, "Thank you, sir." His voice was quiet but strong. I nodded and looked at him with pride. "You did this, Yasim," I said. "You didn't give up." He gave a small smile, looking down for a second. It was not a big smile, but it was real, and that was enough. As time passed, Yasim continued to improve. He was still not the same boy he once was, but maybe that was okay. Life had changed him in ways that no child should experience. Hardship had made him grow faster than others, but he was not alone anymore. And that made all the difference. He had friends who supported him. He had teachers who cared. He had a mother who was trying her best. Step by step, things were getting better. Watching Yasim, I learned something important. We never truly know what someone is going through. We see their actions, but not their struggles. We see their silence, but not their pain. I had judged Yasim before, without understanding his story. I had thought he was lazy, uninterested in school. But I was wrong. He was not weak. He was not careless. He was just a boy trying to survive. And from that day on, I promised myself to always look deeper, to always see beyond the surface,